Okay, hi everybody. We're going to give you a run through here on about 45 minutes on logging software. This is for those of you who are thinking about acquiring logging software or maybe have some but are not sure you want to keep the one you have. Um, it's a good introduction to it, and it's a huge subject, as you'll see. So, what is a ham radio log if you're a beginner? What kind of stuff do you put on a ham radio log? Well, it's a sequential record of the contacts that you make. And the minimum data that people typically put in is the date, and it keeps the time in UTC. Everybody does that nowadays if you're working any stations because of the time zones we cross with our radio. And the call signs of the station that you contacted, what frequency they were on, what mode they were on, and the signal reports. That's sort of the basic stuff that's going to be on a QSL card confirmation that you would send out. Other information people often enter is the name of the person, the state or country that they're in, especially if they're chasing DXCC or worked all states or something. Maybe the city, maybe the county, maybe the grid, maybe the zone, maybe the IOTA if they're chasing that, and maybe their own power level. In fact, here's what a typical ARRL logbook looked like when I started in 1958. And I have a stack of these. It's about stack of these logbooks is probably about a foot and a half high. And here you entered all that information I just talked about by hand. And of course, the problem with this is you got his name and information here, but trying to search it is virtually impossible once you had a lot of contacts you're leafing through pages. And you can see the advantages that software would provide you. By the way, this is the way we kept track of whether we had sent a QSL card to that station and whether we received it, although we didn't know if we'd already worked them before and sent the card before. We had no record like that. Have to look through the whole book. So why keep a log? Well, first of all, there's no longer, there used to be a requirement we had to. There isn't anymore. You don't have to keep a log. FCC doesn't require it. However, it's kind of a history of your amateur radio activity, so it's kind of fun to look back on. And when you contact the station again, if you have a computer log, you'll be able to access the information that you recorded the last time and sort of pick up where you left off and say, hi, Vlad, instead of what's your name. And if you're chasing awards, the log is your record of the contacts that you've made that you want to use for QSLs or for submitting to your for your award. Now, one of the questions on the exam is, it would be useful to have a log if you're resolving complaints with the FCC. First of all, complaints from the FCC where you'd have to do this are very rare to start with. And so, but this would be if you're keeping a regular log and you say, look, all my contacts are in here and I wasn't on the air during that time, and you can see I've been keeping it all straight, that might be helpful. Just as a comment, virtually nobody logs repeater contacts. So if you were talking to people through repeater, you may want to jot down people's names so you remember the name time, but nobody does that pretty much. So the basic advantages of computer logging are pretty obvious. I think it's a simple and fast entry. You type it right in. It reads your time and date from your computer and puts that right into your log. That's important because I can tell you when I used to keep it by hand, I would sometimes get the date wrong and by a day or so, or sometimes my watch would be off or I'd be guessing because I forgot my watch. So this is important when you're QSLing, because if you're not reasonably close to the right time and if you're on the wrong date, you probably aren't going to get a card. Plus, it instantly tells you if you worked the station before, and it'll provide that data that I was talking about. What is his name, what's his location, and so forth. Also, it's got databases as part of the logging program that'll tell you what country that station's in, just based on his call sign. You don't have to look up anything, just like Dan was telling you about with the contest logger. And also can look up its IOTA and even things like county. And as we said in the DX presentation we did a few weeks back, trying to identify the country without some help can be quite tricky because the prefix isn't always enough and the prefixes can be very unusual. As with the contest loggers, you can get beam headings directly so that you don't, or even a map showing where to point your antenna. And you can interface with your radio. Almost all radios coming out nowadays allow you to connect to your computer so that the computer knows what frequency you're on and the radio knows what frequency the logger wants you to be on. So the two work together, much as Dan described before, to so that you aren't going to make a mistake and log it as 20 meters when it was really 15 meters, because the computer will know. And you can search your log. You can search by day or time. You can search by band. You can search by call sign. You can search by prefix, and just look at the data that you have. I'll try to, if I have some time, I'll try to show some of these features. And then you have the data to fill out your QSL card or submit to Log of the World. So let's talk about that a little bit. With a traditional paper QSL, you know, like the ones you see in the picture here on the left, you fill out all the information that I just said by putting it into the computer. And then you can mark that contact for generating labels to go on your QSL card, so you don't have to write out these things by hand. And some people print directly on their cards. You can do that too. You can set up your printer so that you print right on your card. And if you're submitting to outgoing ARRL, outgoing QSL service, it wants your cards ordered in a specific country order, and the logging program will know how to do that. Also, when you receive a card, now the process used to be, and I did this for many decades, I'd have to go through the log and leaf to that page, find that date and time, you know, and then finally look down the page and say, oh, there he is, and check off, yep, I did work him, so I will give him another card, and go out there on the right-hand side and click off that I'm sending him a QSL card. Now you just type in the call sign, hit it, enter, and it automatically will go find all the contacts that you made with him. And if you want to mark it as confirmed, you just click a button on the screen, and it'll mark it for confirmation, and it'll know if you've already sent him a card, and won't generate a label. But if you haven't sent him a card, it will generate a label if you want it to. And if they're QSL managers, if you remember when we talked about QSLing, there's sometimes managers handling the cards, and the programs know about that too generally. And as far as Log of the World is concerned, all the modern logging programs interface to Log of the World. Some send every contact right as you make it to the Log of the World. Others, like the one I use, you have to generate a file which you upload, but that takes 5 minutes. It doesn't even take 5 minutes, just a few minutes, and you upload the file, and then you can download the file from LOTW into your program, and it'll mark all the confirmations that you got that way within your own logging program. Of course, it's also available on the LOTW program. So if you're going to be active working DX, you definitely want to sign up for LOTW. Virtually all active DXers in the world do this, and it's free. And you don't have to be an ARL member to do it. Some other features of electronic logging, depending on the software, it's useful information for DXing, like the sunrise and sunset times. You can get a map of the world showing where the terminator is, that is where the sun is rising and setting, which is really important for low band DXing. Also, as Dan was explaining to you, all the everyday loggers as well as the contest loggers pretty much have a master call sign database, and if you get part of a call, it will give you options for what the call might be. Just those of you who didn't see that, who are listening to this on the recording, may not have seen Dan's presentation about that, but it'll give you essentially all the call signs that pretty much match, and that'll help you with while you're listening to figure out what the real call is, because you got some clues. Because maybe there's only 3 or 4 choices, and it's easier to tell that than to get it cold turkey, so to speak. And of course, it streamlines your export of data for a Log of the World or to QRZ.com or whatever. And And also you can import data from contest loggers or older logging programs. Mostly this is done by a specific file called the ADIF, which again was mentioned by Dan. ADIF extension files allow you to work between various programs. And it's also the form you use for loading up to LOTW as well. Plus, you can generate reports and summaries of the various awards. You know, how am I doing for DXCC? How many states have I worked? Or what bands do I need them on? These reports can be generated, printed if you really want. Most people don't print them there because they're available in your log anytime. And you can also look at your progress against these awards from a, since this date, how many new countries have I worked on, which bands, and so forth. Plus, you can sort the log by, usually we keep it by chronological order, but you can sort it by country, or you can sort it by any of the various parameters that you enter. Most of them are not too useful, but sorting by country sometimes is interesting to do. You can also, besides sorting, you can access data. You can search. You can say, show me all the Japanese stations that I've worked, or show me all the Japanese stations I worked on 15 meters, or that kind of thing. You can do all these searches of your log. And again, some of the loggers have more capability in these areas than others. You can also maintain sublogs. Like if you operate Mobile, you can have that as a sublog, which can be treated as a separate log, or it can be combined to be part of your main log if you want. So if you just want to look at your Mobile log, you can do that. If you just want to look at the contacts that you made this year, you can do that. Which, if you're doing the DX Marathon, it's very useful to know how you're doing this year. And so when you see if you need a new country, you can tell if you need it this year or if you need it overall. You can do the QSLing the same way, because you'll have different QSL cards for one of the sublogs than the other. Perhaps if it's Mobile, you may have a special card, or if you're operated on a vacation at some other location, you may have a separate card for that. So you can do the QSLing that way too, so you don't have to search the whole log. If you have multiple hams, in your family, well, then you can each have your own. You can use the same station, but you can each have your own log and combine them if you want to. Plus, I think you've already gotten the impression from Dan's presentation that you can interface, and with mine earlier, that you can interface your log with your radio, but you can also control your rotator from your log. I do not do that, but there are rotators available that have a serial interface on the back and connect them to your computer, and you can do that. You can automatically switch antennas. Dan talked about switching antennas, and he does this automatically. Once he switches the band on his radio, the logging program tells he knows what band he went to, and it tells the antenna switch what switch to switch to. I have a stepper antenna which has to be tuned, or maybe I should say can be tuned, because that's the cool thing about it, for every frequency and band. And you can control that through your logging program, so that your logging program gets the frequency from your radio and tells the stepper where to go, what frequencies to be on. And usually they have built-in keyers, but sometimes those keyers sort of stutter a little bit because they get the computer's doing multiple things. You may have lots of programs running at the same time. You may be running PSK Reporter and 2 or 3 other things, and if their computer's not quite fast enough, it might start to stutter in the CW. So most people who are going to be sending CW using their logging program to do it, which almost all of them will do, which means you can type in a call sign and hit an enter, and it'll send the information, or you can pre-store messages to send, either for regular everyday contacts or for contesting type contacts. You can buy external keyers that receive ASCII from the computer and turn that into Morse code, and that rate is so slow that you never have an interference problem. But when it's trying to generate code real time, well, the computer's got to pretty much have control because it's making the dots and dashes. Anyway, may not be following that, but when you get into using CW with your computer, you'll see the advantage of perhaps using CW keyers that have that feature. And when I talked about CW, learning CW, I talked about that too. So go back to that presentation and read about it a little bit. You also have interface to internet spotting. That is the stuff that Dan was talking about, where the stations are being heard around the world on the reverse beacon network, or people are manually spotting into the DX clusters. And this will print out in a window all the stations that are being heard, and you can click on any of them and go immediately to them with your radios being controlled by the computer. And you can have usually have special alerts, either by the color that the message shows up, or by the or even by a sound that comes up that says, "Hey, this station has just been spotted is a country that I need on that band." However you want to set it up, you can have no alarms, but you can pretty much define them the way you want. And then also the band map feature is available on everyday loggers, many of them as well as with the contest loggers. And this is where you can show the frequency as a display, and at each frequency you can show what stations are being heard on the internet. And it'll also tell you, many of them, if the person's in Log of the World. It has a database of the stations that are signed up for Log of the World, and it will tell you if that station is an LOTW, so you know if you can get your confirmation that way from them. Or if they're a member of some specific club, like Potomac Valley Radio Club, you can get that printed out. Also, you can do your RTTY, PSK, FT8 digital modes, amateur television, slow scan TV, and other computer generated and decoded modes through your logger, so that you don't have to switch to another program to do it. It'll be actually incorporated into your logger, so that those contacts that you make in those modes goes directly into your logger without having to go from an ADIF file and import the ADIF file into your data later. I have to do that with mine. When I work FT8, I have to import the ADIF files. It's not a big deal, but many of them have it already incorporated in. Many of them also have a CW keyboard interface, so that you can type the Morse code and it will be sent by your computer rather than using a paddle, and be sent by your radio. And some of them even will decode for you as well. Although when I talk about learning CW in the no-code era, I talk about the fact that I don't really recommend using those decoders myself, because I think that ultimately you'll want to wean yourself from them, and the more you use them, the harder that gets to be, unless you're really motivated. They also do very rudimentary, those everyday loggers do rudimentary contest operation, so that if you're not a serious contester, you're just in it to work a handful of stations, or you want to work a new country, that you can at least have the rudiments of a contest logger. That is, it will automatically generate serial numbers. It will do dupe checking to see if you've worked the station before on that band and mode and so forth. Nowhere near as flexible and useful as like N1MM, but quite adequate if you're only going to work 3 or 4 stations, and you don't have to start up another program and then later transfer the data from that program to your logger for every day. And you'll want all of your information in one log, if you possibly can do it, because when you're sending out QSL cards and receiving QSL cards and confirmations, or working through LOTW, you're going to want everything in one place. And mostly people keep everything in their everyday logger, unless they do all their logging, as Dan does, on the contest logger. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And they also provide a world map, which will show you the propagation path that you're trying to work if you type in a call sign, and will show you where the sun is, so if you're interested in gray line operation where you work along the terminator. Just a little bit about computers that you need for logging. The vast majority of the programs are for Windows, but there are programs for Macs and Unix, and you can even find some DOS programs out there if you really want to. Uh, the Windows programs generally work with minimum computer speed and memory. A small, one of those, a small program, excuse me, a small computer, one of those mini computers that runs Windows would be fine, and any old junker would probably be fine because these everyday loggers don't tax the computer a whole lot. So you don't need the latest, greatest gaming computer at all, by any means. Something that somebody else is getting rid of, or that you've retired your main computer, but you still have another one around that you, rather than throw it away, you can use it as a separate logger. As Windows versus Mac, it's huge. There are only a handful of Mac programs, but they're pretty darn good ones. But there are many more choices available for Windows. So when you are choosing a program, you got to make sure it's compatible with your computer. This is not a problem for mainline computers, but if you decide to try some more esoteric logging program, it may not support Windows 11, or you have to make sure that's a problem. But it's normally not a problem. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep about that. Since you're going to be entering data on to your computer, the keyboard's important. One that you're comfortable with. I prefer a full-size keyboard to working with a laptop, although a laptop computer is just fine, and many people use them and have no trouble at all. There are also smaller footprint keyboards available, which take up less room on your desk and work quite well. You'll learn to copy Morse code without writing it down. And that's learning in the no-code era to copy in your head. But you may need room on your desk initially to have a notepad and a pencil, and so the smaller footprint keyboard might be useful for that. I definitely recommend a headset or a boom mic so that your hands are free. You're not trying to hold down a push-to-talk switch. One of the most ridiculous things, I think, is that thing that is sold to with a little handheld push button that you use to work your push-to-talk. Heil sells that. I don't know why anybody would want to use that, because you now you got your hand tied up holding that button down like a dead man switch or something. And I think you should get a foot switch so you can hold that down and keep your hands free for typing. And with the price of computer screens nowadays being as cheap as it is, many hams have multiple screens so that they can display all these many features of their program all at the same time. These are optional things to consider. Now, here's the question that almost everybody who's listening to me at this point is really listening to me for, and that is to say, which one should I get? Well, first thing is, some of them are free and some of them are fee. The fees are typically from $50 to around $100. There's a huge number of choices. eham.net, which is the place I always go to look at reviews of everything in amateur radio. And there's a whole section there, which there's a link to here. This is a live link, which will be on when we upload these. You'll be able to access this. They have more than 100 programs for logging in their reviews, more than you can assimilate. But the nice thing is they show you how many people entered reviews and what the review summary is in stars. So you can get a quick look at which ones you might want to delve into, I think. So what I did in order to try to, I can't really say this is the one you need to get. You need to look into it a little bit, but I looked at the ones in EHAM that had a very high number of ratings, and that the ratings were very high, like around 4 stars plus. And I also looked to make sure that the ratings were generally current. I mean, so you look, some of these, haven't any ratings for 5 years. Well, that's kind of an indication that maybe that program is not the really current one that's being kept up and maintained by the author. One of the things is that almost every ham that did software decided to write a logging program, or maybe used a database program to do it, or a lot of them have even used spreadsheets to do it. And some of them decided they wanted to sell them. So as the result is there's a really lot of choices, but many of them are very uncommon and not used by many people. So what you're often trading when you're picking is capability versus simplicity to use. The really capable ones may have a learning curve that you don't want to put up with. Do you want to pay? Maybe you don't mind paying 75 or $100, but maybe you don't want to pay, and there are lots of free ones out there. And again, is it being kept up to date? And what is its life expectancy? If you're going to want to use it for 10 or 20 years, do you think it's going to be supported for that long based on EHAM reviews? Have there been current reviews? And I tried to sort through that for you a little bit by only picking the ones that are very currently being supported. And also, of all these features, which ones do you really care about now, and which ones are you likely to care about in the future? And then you have this question of a general logger versus a contest logger, which I have a couple slides on coming up. You can try them out. Of course, the free ones, no problem. You can download them and make pretend contacts or even real contacts in them. And then the data can be shifted out by ADIF files and saved for whatever program you eventually get. Most of the for fee programs have some sort of trial version. Some of them only accept a certain number of QSOs. Some of them will erase the QSOs when you try to save them, so you can't really use it for logging. There are various ways of making it impractical for you to get it for free, but virtually all of them have it because they know people want to try it, and they all have websites. And if you go to those websites, they usually show you the features and the screens, and you can get a good feeling for what the program does. Again, you're not making a permanent commitment because you can always get in and out with ADIF files. You can always migrate. So here's the essence of Windows Logger options. Again, there are many choices. I've tried to use the ones that were the highest rated and the most reviews in EHAM. A DX Lab suite is really becoming popular because it's free. It's a suite. It's got 8 interacting programs. It's very popular. Its strong point is that it has very extensive features. The main complaint is, as I said, with all those features, some people said this is overwhelming. It's just too much. It's too much for me. Other people said this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I tried to bring a positive quote out from kind of the most prevalent kinds of quotes from EHAM. This one's one of these quotes. Having used every popular logging program, and now having been a most satisfied user of DX Lab for over 2 years, I can positively tell you that there's nothing that even comes close to what AA6YQ has given freely to the amateur public. You couldn't get a better review than that, but not everybody agrees, but the reviews generally are very, very good for this. I'm going to show you some of the details of it coming up later, but just as an overview. Here's a link to it at the bottom. The stuff in blue are live links. Another one which is very popular with beginners and yet very capable is the N3FJP software. It's a little bit unique in that he's got, and it's not free. He has a basic program which he calls it's called AC log, amateur contact log. It's right at the top, AC log.
We use it at the club. It's contact log.
Yeah, and it does virtually all the main things, and it has a nice, clean, simple interface. And you can try it for free, fully functional for 45 days. So that's pretty generous too. He also has contest loggers. Very uniquely, he sells for each contest for $9 an add-on to the program for that contest. Uh, but you can get AC log plus all the contests that he supports, which is a heck of a lot, for $60. Not a huge investment. Here's a quote. I've been using AC log for over a year, having transitioned from another program, a complex and confusing one. I have not regretted changing. The various logs developed for specific contests are very helpful. AC log is a professional interface. The GUI is easy to understand. So again, you see that the thing about AC log is it's easy to learn relative to some of the other. It's nowhere near as capable as the DX Suite, for instance. DX for Win is the one that I use, so I threw it in here because if I have time, I'm going to demonstrate it for you here in a minute. But it's relatively easy to use. It's been around forever. It has virtually all the features. It's being kept up to date. Its strong point is it's very flexible and capable. Its weak point is that it's an older program, although it's still being supported and updated. And when it first came out, they called it DX Win because it had Windows. Now many of the programs have Windows, so this is not unique in that way. I started using it 30 years ago. I haven't changed. I know lots of people who are in the same boat I am, perfectly satisfied. There's another quote just like mine. I've been using this logging software for as long as I can remember. Seems like nearly 20 years, and all that time it has never crashed once, has been updated periodically, and does everything I needed to do. It's not free. It's $90. Here's the link. Ham Radio Deluxe is a popular suite, quite a different suite from the DX Labs. This is not only does logging, it does remote control of your radio, multi-mode digital capability, satellite tracking, rotor controls, all kinds of stuff. The strong points are it's compatible with something called JT Alert, which the FT8 people like to use when they're looking for specific stations on FT8. And it does the WSJTX logging directly in the program. Plus it has this DM780 digital package, which has all kinds of different digital modes in it. The weak point is not cheap. It's $100. And some have had problems installing it. I have no experience with it myself. I'm only quoting reviews from EHAM. And it's not totally focused on logging. It's got all these other capabilities too. I realize other experienced users of logging programs have their favorites. This best fits me, a moderate to serious operator, not exclusive to contests, with a fair degree of automation and by no means a world-class station. I'm excited about the announced roadmaps for HRD in the future. So they're still keeping it active and they're still selling it. There's a free version, but it's really old now. It goes back to 2011, and you can't find it from his log site, but it's out there. But I don't recommend it. From what I reviewed about it, it's so old that it's got bugs and crankiness about it. WinLog 32 is free, and it comes out of the UK. It has its fans. Its strong points are it's well established, respected. It's been in development for over 20 years. It does general logging, and it emphasizes award chasing on HF and VHF, DXing. It's used all over the world. Simple, uncluttered layout, works with a single window. The weak points is it probably doesn't have all the latest bells and whistles. And there are not many current reviews on EHAM. So that's sort of a caution. It's still getting a few recent, like 2024, maybe one, I can't remember. It works flawlessly with Log of the World. Here it runs on a small netbook under Windows 10, so I don't need anything else. So I know that there are a lot of people that use it. And Log4OM is a more recent program, and it is very popular and it's free. It's full featured and it's kept current. The strengths are it has all the modern features. It's a simpler interface than lots of them. It has tabs at the bottom of the window rather than multiple windows. And weaknesses, I would say not many. It's a matter of choice. check and see if it has the things you like. And the quote I have is, I've used this program for over 3 years and it's been a great experience. It has prediction models for propagation, great logger, integration with that WSJT-X, FLDigi. If you're familiar with FLDigi, that's used for PSK and other digital modes, and N1MM. So it's a popular choice. Log for the old man. I think it comes out of Germany, but I'm not sure about that anymore. Logger 32 is another one you might want to look into. It's free, lots of features. There are no reviews though since 2022, and there's no recent new version, but it's still supported. So you might want to look at it. There is it leads the pack for all free full-featured station control programs, since Ham Radio Deluxe now costs $90. Well, that's an old review because it now costs more than that. So anyway, it's a free one that you might want to look into. What about Mac? Mac Logger DX, I think, is probably the most popular one. It got the most reviews. The strengths are it has lots of features. It'll even text or email you when DX is on, although there are other ways to do that too. You can log directly from WSJTX, certainly great. Folks rave about the support. If you contact the guy who makes this thing, he'll get back to you and even add features that you asked for and so forth. One of the weaknesses is it's a Windows program, so when they keep updating the Windows operating system, the older programs don't always work with it. So you have, when he puts out well, let me say it the other way. When he develops new versions, it will often not work with older versions of the operating system. So it kind of means you have to keep your operating system current. And it does have a $95 price tag. But it also will work for contesting. In fact, I have a friend who's a pretty active contester, and he uses Mac Logger DX. RumLog NG for Mac is also popular. It's free rather than $90. It has most of the features. Some have had trouble interfacing the radios, they said. Here's a quote: exceptional free ham radio logging software tailored for Mac OS. I found RumLog NG to be indispensable. Not only meets but often surpasses the capability of other logging, so including those you pay for. So I'm rushing here a little bit, but these will be available for you to read, and you can always go on eHam for them yourself. Linux. Suppose you've got a Raspberry Pi and you want to run Linux. Well, there are some Linux logs out there. The one that seemed to be most popular is something called CQR log. So I would suggest you look into that if you want to run on Linux. And certainly Raspberry Pi is capable of doing all that you ever want to do with logging. If you want to look at some other choices, rather than repeat them here, I'm giving you this link to look them up. So here's some screenshots of a few general loggers here to wrap up. As I said, N3 FJP's AC log, beginners seem to like it. Often used by clubs at field day because people can sit down with the field day contest package and use it pretty simply. It's got a nice, easy interface. Here's what it looks like. It's one window basically, and you type in the information down here, call, date. It'll fill in the date. The date and time for you. It'll tell you what country it is if you enter the call, just like all the other programs. You can type the name and the state and the county and frequency, and then click here just to put other comments, and there's a separate comments thing here. It gives you antenna headings and distances, and it tracks your QSLs. So it does most of the things you'd want to do. The DX Lab suite is here's the 8 parts of it. It's got this launcher that launches the other 7 programs. This thing called Rig Commander is what does the radio control, and it supports virtually every radio that's got a computer interface. The DX View is what displays detailed information on the DX entries as you enter them. The logger is called DX Keeper. Pathfinder is a thing that helps you find QSL routes for your QSLing. There's a thing called Prop View that works with VoaCap and the beacons to give you propagation information. The thing that does the internet DX spotting is a separate program called Spot Collector, and then Wind Warbler is their DX, their digital package, which does PSK, RTTY, CW, and has a voice gear in it as well for calling CQ by voice. It's compatible with JT Alert again. That'll let you know if you're looking for a country on FT8. Let me see if I get the right mouse here. So here's what the basic DX keeper looks like. Not too different from the one we looked at before. Notice it's got these tabs to pick up other information and do other things. This is interfaced directly with the radio, so it knows the transmit and receive frequency. You enter the call, it knows what country it is, and it'll direct your beam as well. You can have presets here in the DX view. You can have presets for if you want to point to 90 or 135 or 180, you can have those presets, or you can set up presets for some DX station that you're trying to get, some DXpedition that's underway, and then when you click on it, it automatically puts your antenna there. To me, that's cool, but I don't know that would help me work any more stations. Gives you the latitude, longitude, and all kinds of information about the DX station. Plus, it tells you where you've worked them before, where it's verified, and so forth, where it's confirmed. I don't know what the V stands for, honestly. Worked and confirmed, and I'm not sure what V is. Maybe that's actually submitted for awards. Anyway, links to maps and MapQuest and sun information and so forth. No time to go into all that. DX for Win has many of these options, and at the end I'll go to that and show it to you. This is what not the way mine is set up, but this is the way it looks with separate windows that do almost all, or that do I think everything that well, I would say that's not true. Almost all the things that DX Lab does, this one does too. And it's got many features that even though I've been using it since the 90s, I still haven't used them all because it's really got lots of capability. So, when you enter a call sign, it'll tell you where you've worked that country before, tell you where you worked that zone before, or where you worked that prefix before. Do that same thing with states. Of course, there is a log itself, which it keeps track of. Here's the actual log book, and you can scroll through that and sort it. Here's the packet window that picks up the spots from the network. Oh, that's up here, down here. This is for entering data. So anyway, it's no time to go into all the details. But finally, the last here, I want to talk about, do you want a separate contest logger and general logger, or do you just want to use one? So here are your choices. Use your general logger for contests as well. Use your contest logger for general logging. So this is a way of having only one. And of course, obviously, the other choice is to have separate ones. That's the choice I've taken, but I'm a pretty serious contester. As I said, your general logger does provide the basic functions of a contest logger. And the advantage is that the name of the person will show up. So if you wanted to in the contest, and it was a friend that you knew really well, you might want to say hello to him, but you couldn't remember his name. It's there. You've worked him before. Mostly, I would say don't do this because they don't really want to chit chat. But sometimes, if you do know the person, it's kind of cool. And there's no need to merge the contest logs and the general logs using ADIF. The disadvantage is that really it only works for casual logging, and it won't do a lot of the things that N1MM and others will do. Now, using your contest logger for general logging, which is what Dan does, the advantage is that you get lots of practice with your contest software. You only pay for one logger if you're buying it. And likewise, all the information about that station is going to be available during the contests, which might be useful to you. The disadvantage is it's probably more complex. Certainly N1MM is a lot more complex than N3FJP. Um, and it doesn't have the capability generally for tracking QSLs and printing and the words tracking and all that stuff, because that's not what it's designed to do. But you don't necessarily want to do all that. Finally, get one of each. Maybe a little more expensive, although some are free. You won't get as much practice with the contest logger, but perhaps the best features of both can be, well, you will definitely have the best features of both because you'll be running separate ones, and you can easily move all your stuff into your general logger using the ADIF. For contests, you already heard this in Dan's presentation, N1MM is by far the leader, and it's free. And it's updated weekly with new features, updated constantly. Huge capability. And I would say it's probably 80% of the people that are doing serious contesting are using this, or maybe more. WinTest is a very good program. I use it at W3LPL's multi-op superstation, but he has special reasons for wanting to use that. It's very similar to the legacy CT, which was the first really contest logger 30 plus years ago. The N3FJP suite is definitely popular, and you can buy all the contests for $59. There's a contest logger that's getting some attention called DX Log that is free, similar to WinTest, and it's been made free. It was originally being paid for, but K1LZ, I think, donated some money to make it free. Supports over 450 contests. So if you're looking for a free logger that isn't N1MM by any means, for some reason, I would try the DX Log. RumLog and MacLog, MacLogger DX are the two ones that I'm aware of for Mac. Less than 1% of the logging programs reported in the 2019 CQ Worldwide, which is the last one I can find stats for, were Mac. So you can tell that the vast majority of serious contesters, are almost virtually every one of them is using a Windows program. But it's not probably not fair because I know a couple that are not. So there are some people that are definitely Mac people, and that's what they want to do. My friend is WB2ZAB, and he's a big fan. I'm not sure that it does Cabrillo. I used to have to do a special conversion to get the Cabrillo files, which are generally used for submitting to contests online. Anyway, information here if you want to link to it. And here's information on Skookum, a logger, which is also pretty popular. It gets 5 stars on eHAM and it's free. It wasn't listed at all, however, in the 2019 stats. And here for Linux, here's some contest loggers for you guys. This is an old logger called drlog for contesting that's been ported to Linux. It does support the WinKeyer, which is that gadget which talks between your logging program and your keying for your automatic keying of stuff by the program. By the way, these contest loggers send the exchange for you. You don't even need to, you can run the whole contest without using a paddle because it sends everything for you. Generally, I use a paddle to ask for fills and that, but some people use the keyboard to do that because it does have a keyboard capability. So I don't know too much about these Linux programs because I haven't used them, but if you are a Linux person, you'll want to check into these. So don't let the wide range of choices stymie you. You should get a logger. Get a basic computer. You probably maybe have one for free that somebody doesn't want. You don't need a big fancy computer to do this. You should be doing it. You should jump in because you can always change later if you decide that it isn't for you because of the ADIF file technique. So that's all I had for that. I don't have a lot of time to do a demo, but let me see if I can share my screen, and then bring up DX for Win. I want DX for Win, not that. Okay, so let me get rid of RBN here. This is a pain.
By the way, Dan is back with us.
Oh, okay. Dan, we didn't cut you off. You just suddenly stopped.
Yeah, Windows tried to update him all of a sudden right in the middle of his presentation.
Don't do that to me. I can't get rid of this stuff in the background. Okay, so this is looking more complicated than it should because I got this stuff in the background.
It is complicated. This is the most complicated logging program ever invented.
That's not true. So, so anyway, here's how it generally works. So you want to, if you work somebody, if I work K2YWE, I type in K2YWE. It's right down here. It auto-fills Dan, and he's in Annapolis. Of course, I knew that already. Here, it shows me in this window. These are all separate windows, which you can move anywhere you want. And this user and password has nothing to do with this. Is the stuff in the back I can't seem to erase. It tells me that I've worked. It says the United States, so I've worked the United States everywhere. And it's a zone that I've worked everywhere too. And it worked all states. It doesn't have a state entered. I can do that right now, Maryland. So now it knows that. And I can erase this QSO so it has that information by deleting the QSO, but it'll now know the state is Maryland if I go to it. You notice the master calls, it will pick up the fact that there's their call sign in the master call list of K2YWE to help me guess the calls. Here's a list of all the contacts that I made with Dan over the years are available up here. So I can scroll down these and look at all the contacts I made and say, if I didn't know them so well, I could say, yeah, we've had contacts all the way back to 1999. Actually, it goes back before that even. You notice up here, I'm getting TX9A showing up in red because I told it to alert me if TX9A is on. And these are the spots coming in from the internet over here. So if I want to look at more, I just say show DX and it shows me all the current spots. This is telling me just how old these spots are. So if I just go up here and say delete old spots, all the old ones have now gone away. So here's a UK8OM is in here now, and that's a more rare country, Uzbekistan. You can see I don't have Uzbekistan on 80 meters. So that's a band I should try to work it on. And I have worked it on phone, but I don't have a card for 40 meters and so forth. This tells me all that information. It's not a state and it's not an IOTA, so it doesn't have any information on that. So that's basically, yeah, here's the log up here. I can scroll through that log and look at contacts anywhere I want. I can search. If I filter, I can say search, and let's say I want to see all the stations that I've worked in Burma. So I put XZ in here, and I hit enter, and here's a list of, in my log now is showing all the contacts that I've made with Burma in the past, which is not all that many, but a reasonable number. So if I'm interested in researching that kind of information, I can. If I want to know how I'm doing with DXCC, remove the filter, I can go here to reports, DXCC, I can get a listing, but I'll look at the summary, and I can hit OK, and this tells me how many countries I've worked mixed, 338, 337 confirmed, phone only, CW only, digital, worked 326 on digital, image, only one, USA. And then I can do it by band as well, how many countries I've worked per band. And this tells me which ones I've submitted for awards and which ones I haven't, so I can keep track of all that stuff. Plus, I told you, it does track QSLing for me. It makes QSLing real easy. All I have to do is click down here. If I want to make a label, I just click that, and it will, when I make a run, it will print the labels, and it has formats for almost any kind of label you can imagine, or you can print right on your cards and so forth. Here's information on what that country XZ beam heading is from here, long path heading, what the path he would point toward me, if that's interesting, and then it gives the sunrise and sunset time at his end, if that's useful. Anyway, that's about as much time as I want to spend on that, but I just wanted to get
Quick question. So this is just a reminder, everybody, this is DX4Win.
DX4Win, yes.
DX number 4, WIN. And then you use N1MM for contests?
I use N1MM for contests. I used to use WinTest because that's what Frank uses over at his station for networking reasons. But I switched to N1MM and I've never looked back.
What do you do? Do you just how do you move your log entries from N1MM over to DX4Win, or do you?
Yeah, it has a simple export, a pull down window, and you can just click that you want to export it as an ADIF file, and then once you've done that, it'll put it in a folder that's associated with the N1MM program, and then you just go into in my case DX4Win, and I say I want to import. So let me stop this. So I say File, Import, Export, and then I say what kind of file it is, and then I can open up a window that'll tell me I'm going to say I want to import, and it's an ADIF, and then in this case this is importing my stuff from WSJT, but you just do a search like you always would, find the file that you want to import. If it's an ADIF file, it'll bring it right in and merge it right into your computer.
So typically we send our logs in the Cabrillo format when you go to
right, and N1MM and all the contest loggers will generate Cabrillo format.
That's how you submit your contest log from N1MM, and then if you want to copy your log from N1MM into your everyday log, you use ADIF format for that.
Right, and I hadn't really thought about it because I never do it, but I don't see Cabrillo as on the list here, which is kind of a...
it's not really. I use HRD and it's the same story.
You can't do it.
What I do, I use Ham Radio Deluxe for everyday, and I use N1MM for contests. And I do the same thing Roll does. I export from N1MM as an ADIF and import it into Ham Radio Deluxe. By the way, Ham Radio Deluxe usually offers discounts. It's like $35 or $40. So I think the list price is like $60, but you can get it cheaper, $99. You can get it.
I think, man, well, the last information I had said the list price was $149.
$149. Ooh,
it was marked down to $89.
It's like going shopping at Kohl's. Don't pay full price.
But it was marked down to $99 or something, which I think they never sell it at the list price. So I can, here I've set up a filter just for 2025. So now the log starts at 2025, January 1st, and this is just the stuff I've worked now. So now all the information about what worked or confirmed and all that stuff is just for this year.
Right.
But all the old information about the names and QTHs and all that still comes through. But this is so I can track what I've done this year, and I can set it for any year, of course. Okay, enough of that nonsense. That's any questions?
I think, let me just check. I think I captured all the questions.
Yep. Have any more questions for Dan now that he's back to answer them?
No more questions. Does anybody have any more questions for Dan? You got to re-establish Dan as a co-host so you can talk.
All right.
I think you left. Hang on. Nope, he's gone.
I have a couple of charts you might be interested in the context of what you were just saying.
Oh, there you
are. Let me make him a co-host. Okay. Go ahead, Dan's frozen again, I think.
No, I'm not
No, he's
frozen.
not.
I'm
Okay,
here.
okay.
I've been talking though. I don't know if you're hearing me.
Go ahead.
Are
So,
you hearing me?
yeah, I hear you. So do you
Yeah, I
have
hear
a
Okay.
couple of charts associated with contesting?
Well, I had a chart. Hang on here. Oh,
The
no.
reason I say I may shut the recording off and restart so I can keep everything, so I can, if you will, splice it back into the other presentation.
Well, we can do that, but I just wanted to show you this one chart here, just because Roll mentioned something, and I thought we could do it here. Let's see. Share. I've only got one screen on this computer, so it's easy. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Tim N3QE created this chart last year. It's a little bit newer than the information Roll was talking about. And these are contest loggers, and he surveyed a whole bunch of sources of loggers and contest loggers. Because in the Corbillo file, in the header is the name of the contest of the software that created the file. So it's really easy to track what loggers were used. You don't have to survey anybody. You just go to the contest authority and they have all this information. So this is what Tim put together. And it shows you, how things have changed throughout over time. But N1MM and N1MM Plus is the same thing. Plus is just the upgrade that Tom made a change in the way the program was structured. So that's why you see that. But all that bluish green stuff is all N1MM, and you can see it's overwhelmingly number one.
Yeah, back in 2005, CT hadn't really died yet, but it's
No, and incredibly, if you look at the chart here on the right, the thing in the yellow, 5% of the logs were CT win. Oh no, that's C-test win. That's a different program. Okay, sorry. Yeah, Roll and I and everybody else.
CT for Windows, I think, is what replaced CT here.
Well, now that's not, no, CT win replaced it. CT test win is a European thing.
Oh, okay.
Roll and I and others that are as long in the tooth as we are, our first contest loggers were CT.
Absolutely.
And one of the things about WinTest is it emulated the CT keystrokes. So people like Roll and me and Frank, and we liked it for that reason. We didn't have to relearn all that stuff. So N1MM is probably no less intuitive than CT was, but it's easy enough to learn. Anyway, I wanted to share this chart with you because you did mention the different
Yeah, that's
programs.
cool. I asked, actually interesting, I wrote Tim and I asked him if he had this information, and I never heard back from him, but he must have missed my email. So notice this is not a constant percentage. This is actually showing also the growth in logs submitted for the CQ Worldwide over that same.
Yes, it does. Tim's charts always try to present as much information in a compact form as possible. I'm not terribly fond of these stacked charts, but in this case, I think it's quite appropriate.
Well, he's got the numbers over here, so you can see it's like 52% N1MM, and everything else is in the noise.
Yeah, and I would have guessed WinTest was more popular than FJP, but there's so many people that are casual contesters that are happy with N3FJP. I will tell you, by the way, his contest modules, it's the full-blown program. He just calls them modules.
What was that? I didn't hear that. What's that?
That he calls them N3FJP. Scott calls those contest modules, but they're actually the full program.
Oh, I see. They don't actually run with N3FJP.
No, each one stands alone. I've got some charts on that program. I mean, if you're interested in it, I have a single chart on each of the contest loggers. So if people aren't asleep yet and they want to see that, I can show it to them.
Well, we're down to 46 people, but they're still here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can start where I stopped. I just had a little bit of a wrap up about how to get started, and then I had this thing with the loggers that people usually ask about. So I can do that, or I'm at your disposal.
I mean, I really think that if you break it down into a simple choice, either get N1MM or get N3FJP. And N3FJP is probably not what you're going to want to have when you get really proficient at contesting, but it may be a good place to start. Unfortunately, you have to pay money for it. The other choice would get him on N1MM, and go online and download some videos and start to practice with it a little bit. And it's not it's you can use all the features, or not, or just log it into the window and don't do much else. The bad thing I found at the beginning was every now and then I'd hit a wrong key, and then I had no idea what the thing had done, because it has so many key functions that if you end up in the middle of a contest, all of a sudden you're in Never Land. You don't know where you are. That can happen when you first start. It hadn't happened to me in a long, long time, but
So, I mean, this is N1. If you still can see my screen, this is N1MM.
yeah, it is up there.
Yeah, and it's pretty much everything in a summary there. It does a whole bunch of stuff, and it supports a bunch of contests. Win test cost you money. This is esoterically used by a few people. Write log is actually still used by some people. One of the foremost contesters in the world, who we actually had lunch, Roland and I had lunch with today, uses write log, and the reason he uses it is because this has remote operation integrated into it. There's nothing else you need to do. It's set up for remote operation. So he likes that. And here's FJP.
But
So,
it's not changing for some reason. It's still showing N1MM.
We're seeing the slide shows N1MM.
maybe this thing is such a pain in the neck. Hang on. So you have to hit the share. Oh, showing the wrong. There we go. So
Oh, there we go.
there was N1MM with all that stuff. I talked about win test, TR for win, which is esoteric, I think. Write log, but also a granddaddy, along with CT, the granddaddy of all the cool stuff that we have now, and it runs in Linux. Write log, which has that integrated remote stuff, and here's FJP.
There's some
But
people.
I don't know what the price is now. I think it may have escalated a little since I made this chart.
The prices I had were current. I think it's $39 now.
And 15 for the contest.
Nine. No, I think it's still $8.99 for
Yeah.
whatever
So
I had was right. I looked it up yesterday.
anyway, I mean, I agree with everything Rolls said about it. It's very popular. It's simple. You can't move the windows around the way you can in some of the others. And I think there'll come a time when you say, I wish I had these other features, but there may not. I don't know. Anyway, that was in Skookum and Rumlog. I actually installed Skookum Logger on an old Mac that my wife gave me, MacBook, just to see what it was like. And I have to tell you, it drove me nuts. But I think that's just because it has a learning curve for sure, and I wasn't very high up on it.
A lot of people like that rum log. I know.
Yeah, I know that.
Skookum, I think, is the most popular, isn't it?
I think it is. It doesn't have all of, Skookum Logger is much closer to N1MM in terms of features.
If I had a recommendation to make to the 46 people that are left, I would say get yourself a cheap Windows computer and, bite the bullet. You could tell nobody's using Mac computers in the contest log, in the CQ Worldwide contest, which is the most popular contest in the world.
Yeah, well, I know people like Todd use it, there's a few.
But there's some people who, are absolutely Bill Gates haters, so you can't get them to change. But yeah, so all this information will be in your presentation, right? So
Yeah, all these links here to the different resources. There's a list of upcoming contests that you might want to look at.
Dan, we have a question. And what rig do you typically use for contesting?
I use either an FT5000 or an FT101.
I have a couple of K3s that I use, but I've
or
used
FTTX, but I don't think it's once you it's like an asymptotic thing. Once you're using a contest grade at the top of the line radio,
I would say that the radio that you pick is not going to make a difference in your enjoyment or score in the contest.
I would say that too.
I agree, unless it's these little incremental differences. They don't mean anything. It's like, I was an active sailboat racer, and the sails that you use in your boat are not nearly as important as where you point the boat. And the same thing is true here.
Yeah, right. I mean, W3LPL uses K3s and FT5000s, but
Yeah,
they're very expensive. Well, they're both pretty expensive radios.
yeah, they are.
So you don't have to spend that money. Your IC7300
7300 works just great for
will
me.
work great.
And I don't know if you said it enough times, but there's two things if you want to start out, one thing to do, and you get a double bonus usually, is work state QSO parties. They are always very casual, and it gives you practice in how the contesting exchanges work, and
Well,
and that also gives you the other side of that. The double bonus is that if you're working towards worked all states, then over the course of a year you'll have opportunities for stations in every state in the U.S. to be on the air over a weekend, and you can
But
work a couple.
be aware that the Delaware contest is you're not going to work a lot of people.
well, I, one thing I'll say about the state QSO parties, because of what Tom said, they are casual. They have a lot of what I'll call casual contesters in them, and they will violate 50% of the things I told you are good
Exactly.
practices.
Yeah.
They will tell you, please copy. They will repeat what you sent them. They will do things that will drive a contester nuts.
They will
So
also
Field,
tell you
field,
stories about their dog and their rig and their tower and who knows.
it's not a place to emulate the behaviors that you see, but it is a place for you to go.
a
And
good place to get started is at the GOTA station, to get on the air station at your club's field
yeah,
day.
Yeah.
especially if it's a
I
local
would
club
offer
here.
the best if you want to experience real contest environment but not too much stress is get on Sunday afternoon when all the big guns have all worked each other, so now they're looking for us little guys that they can add to their log, and they'll be very patient with you. There won't be a lot of big pileups, and it'll give you practice. You can listen on Saturday and then try to work a few stations on Sunday.
There's no harm in calling people, so all
Especially,
what Tom says is true. They're more. I mentioned that when you're fresh meat on Sunday.
yeah. And if you don't know what to do, they'll tell you, by the way. I've asked guys, there's a guy calling, and I call, he says CQ contest, and I'll call him and I'll say, what's the exchange? And he'll say, I need your state or I need a number. And then I just give it to him.
And boy, and one of our favorite things is when I'm operating in a real competitive station is when somebody gives us number one. We love that.
Yeah. Okay, you're done. Go off the air now.
Well, nobody else has got them. That's right.
Uh,
If you want to get into a real contest, though, these are the two that, Tom talked about working WAS and eventually getting that, and same with the XCC. These two contests are magnets for that.
right.
The North American QSO party will help you with your WAS. In the ARLDX contest, the DX are a captive audience. They are forced by the rules to talk to only US and Canadian. They can't work themselves. So it's a fabulous contest to be on this continent in North America. And if you do it on Sunday, you will have plenty of customers.
Yeah, all good stuff. All right. So everybody go out and get N1MM and get one of those free loggers and
Get on the air.
A little bit of a dense environment there.
yeah, it can be. Well, you don't have to open all those windows if you don't want to. You can just
No,
open.
you don't have to put them there either, but I'm OCD, so I have to line everything up.
I mean, you could do it with just two windows, log window and the entry window.
And that, it's funny. One of my friends, and he's a member of our club, KG4USN, he lives not far from me. He calls me often for advice on things. And Ken's been using N1MM. And I would say almost in every conversation we have, he will say, "Oh, I didn't know it could do that. I didn't know it could do that." But Ken started off just using this entry window, and I'm not even sure he used the band map. And every time we talk, he finds out about something else it does. But I use it every day because I wanted to find those things out in a hurry. But very good. And it's stable. It's not going to let you down. Not like Windows did today to me.
It probably will not run on an old junker though.
It's amazing. I had it running on what was whatever preceded Windows 7 on an old machine. I mean, I don't know about it running on a 386, but any
I
of
just
the
remember that down at John's place when he was running N1MM, it ran so slow on those laptops that he had, whatever they were. It
yeah.
was really terrible.
I mean,
And
I have a 10-year-old laptop that I just fool around with in the shack. It's got N1MM on it. Sometimes I use it as a second computer.
well, we were doing two stations simultaneously and all that stuff and kind of
Yeah,
taxed.
yeah.
It was not terrible, but it was, a second delay to update a window is pretty annoying.
That's really annoying. You're right. Yeah, that would be not
So
fun.
anyway, you don't need and maybe N1MM is more efficient than Plus is more efficient than N1MM used to be. I don't know.
I think it is because of the way it was rewritten. So
Okay. Thank you all for hanging in there.